Well, joining me now to discuss this from Islamabad is Arshi Hashmi. She's an associate professor at the Department of Peace and Conflict Studies at Pakistan's National Defense University. And at a train station in Amsterdam, we have South Asian politics and military affairs expert Ayesha Siddiqa. I thank you both for joining us. Ayesha, let me begin with you. After this latest election, and especially with regards who ran in that election, is Pakistan mainstreaming extremism?
Extremism was getting mainstream for a long time. It's nothing new. What we see really are the fruits of, this whole policy of extremism, of mainstreaming. Instead of, really working on their policy and working on their ideology and working on their agenda, what the state has done is kind of brought them into politics, and allowed them to control, allowed them to have better communication with the society, and thus mainstream their own ideology. But if, reference to some of the recent events, especially firing of the top economist, I think that was something slightly different. And, we can talk about it later.
Okay, so we'll bring it up. I'll get to that, and I'm going to pivot to it in a few minutes' time. But let me ask Arshi the same question. Is Pakistan mainstreaming extremism when we look at groups such as the one that calls itself Ahl Sunnat wal Jamaat, which found its roots in what is clearly an extremist organization that killed people, based on religious ideology? Can we say that things are going in a radical direction?
No, I don't think so. There is certainly a problem of extremist groups in Pakistan, and it's not just a new phenomena. Of course, we have seen many other groups who have been, trying to assert their position in Pakistan. See, the problem is not just the issue of, getting into the politics and getting into, placing their candidates in the elections and all that. It's more of the nature of the society. The way religiosity is taken in Pakistan and the kind of political, I would say, if not political, but certainly social space that certain groups have acquired, that is something to be worried about. But if we give the statement that Pakistan as a state is mainstreaming extremism, I think it's a bit of an exaggeration.
Okay.
Because
so let me then ask Ayesha, right? So, okay, I'm going to ask this a bit differently then. Whether it's coming from the top or whether it's coming from the bottom. In a democracy, sometimes, if enough people believe a certain thing, for example, death for blasphemers or something like that, Ayesha Siddiqa, are we seeing a situation where enough people believe certain things that could be intolerant of religious minorities and so forth, which drags the political mainstream and the state in that direction? Is that happening right now, Ayesha Siddiqa?
See, ideology doesn't grow on trees. It's not that people one day got up and said, oh, we are going to be extremists, or we are going to have an extremist ideology. I mean, I've probably lived a bit longer than Arshi, and I can say that there were times when the Shia and Sunni were kind of much more joined. They lived together. There wasn't that apprehension of, from one sect to the other. There was no fear. Now, what has happened is, especially since the mid-1970s and later the 1980s, the way the state, and when the state, by the state, I mean the deep state, played a role in basically to fight, in order to fight the American war in Afghanistan.
Right.
What was done was kind of turn the society around, make it more extremist, and that process has never stopped. And what people are saying today, and if people are saying hang the Ahmadis, or people are saying killing people, or people killing people for blasphemy, that is not something which has happened in a day. That's happened in decades.
Right. And some people have
certainly.
Some people have blamed Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Some people have blamed Zia-ul-Haq and so forth. That's more of a historical discussion as to the roots of it, the war in Afghanistan and so forth. On the ground today, Arshi, let me give you one example, right? So where Ayesha is right now, Amsterdam, the Netherlands, we see Pakistan not very happy with the Netherlands. Now, a lot of these groups don't necessarily have to be in the National Assembly. Many of them didn't get any seats in the National Assembly, but they made enough noise and promised to shut down cities such as Lahore. We saw Tehreek-e-Labbaik shut down Islamabad last year. Enough so that the National Assembly decided to vote on the Dutch caricatures. Now, Geert Wilders might be an unpalatable character, but he's not the leader of the Netherlands. This became an issue between Pakistan and the Netherlands, and Pakistan took this very strong stance against the Netherlands and promised to bring it up at the UN and so forth. Is that enough to tell us, Arshi, that they don't need to be in government in order to shift the narrative? If they make enough noise, the politicians will be offended on their behalf and follow suit with them. Is that fair?
Well, I think to an extent we can say that, this is certainly a problem where even those who are not really, those parties which are, and you know that in the elections, how our electoral system works. So most of the people who, manage to get into the National Assembly, they don't really belong to these religious groups. But certainly this is a problem that even these groups who are not in the assembly, they manage to sort of exert some pressure. And this is where I bring the issue of the society, where even if the government and the constitution and the state is saying that we have certain rules and certain framework where people have equal rights and everything, but then what is happening within the society that these groups have managed to get enough space where they can influence other people. There is also the role of media as well.
Certainly. Arshi, let me come in for a second.
They get access.
Can I come in for a second? Society didn't retract the job offer to Atif Mian, the economic advisor, right? Society didn't do that. That came from the Federal Minister of Religious Affairs, and government retracted that. So you have Imran Khan's new government say, here's an economic advisor. The guy is good at his job and he's going to be good for the economy. He happens to be an Ahmadi. The religious affairs guy says, I'm sorry, I don't like his approach to religion. They withdraw the job offer. That didn't come from society, it came from government. So would you concede to Ayesha that this is government playing religious sectarianism in politics?
Again, I would say the government would never say, and no government has ever said that they are actually doing that. But certain actions and policies or decisions that certainly provide the opportunity to such groups, and that is our main problem, where they have to manage. So if the PTI would, if you talk to their people, they would definitely say that they don't really subscribe to the ideas of those extremist organizations. But this decision, and let me tell you this, it's not just that these groups, they manage that, but there are other people also. There is a other side of the story also, and there, if you look at our social media and if you look at the media, mainstream media, there are voices where people are coming up with the, with their, sort of they don't really agree with what the government did. So it's like right now in Pakistan, there is this kind of a discourse which is gradually developing, and I'm sure that, and I have actually read that, and you must have seen that even the PTI voters, they have been saying this thing that though they do support PTI government and they do believe that there is this government who would, who has this sort of many promises for Pakistan, but then this particular action is not taken in a very good taste. Right. So I agree to an extent that there are certain decisions which could have been handled, more wisely than the way they've been. And this is the real test for the government also.
Right. Yeah. Ayesha Siddiqa, what does that tell us? Offering a guy a job and then having the religious affairs federal minister deciding this doesn't quite cut it, and the PTI and the government withdrawing the job offer. What does that tell us about the PTI, the current government, and Prime Minister Imran Khan moving forward?
Well, you see, firstly, the PTI, when you say PTI supporters, one segment of the PTI is also religious right. So what they're saying is that they don't agree with the government. What they're saying is that ideologically they don't agree with it. And it's interesting that the PTI government backed off on social media, and they backed off. So what it tells about the PTI government is that in future, it's not going to stand up to any pressure from the religious right. But then let me draw your attention towards another thing, which is that was this really a genuine protest? Because what we've seen is TLP, the Tehreek-e-Labbaik Ya Rasulullah, and Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan. This is a party which surfaced in these recent 2018 elections, and they're brought up and they're made to protest every time there is a political contest and there's a political pressure in which or a political issue in which the military also doesn't agree. Now, is it really that firing Atif Mia was really about the right wing having problem with his faith, or was it some other actors who didn't like the fact that he questioned the China-Pakistan economic corridor, and therefore this was an excuse to kind of get him off the track and get him off the Economic Affairs Commission?
Okay, that's an interesting angle. For the moment, Ayesha Siddiqa and Arshi Hashmi, I thank you both for joining us here on the Newsmakers.